You're listening to Intuitive Style, where we believe that everyone has style. I'm Maureen Welton. In conversation with fantastic guests, we explore how to tap into our style intuition so that we can dress authentically and live fully. Today's guest is Harry, the writer of Harry Styles. That name on Substack. As an early One Direction fan, you know what I mean. You know her from her nuanced, vulnerable writing about career transitions and mental health challenges, just as much as her playful and creative styling suggestions. Or perhaps you've seen her extensive backlog of makeup tutorials or journal making on her YouTube channel. However you've met her, you're sure to have loved her. Harry, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, that intro was like the most lovely thing ever. I'm like, can you just send me that so I can put that in like a happy book? So
I
lovely.
will print it out. I'll handwrite a note. You can
Thank
keep
you
it
so
wherever.
much, Maureen.
You wrote it yourself. You did all those things. So you made it easy. Well, I wanted to start off by referencing your recent undercover work, a post that you put up on Substack, where you identified some themes in what folks on the east side of LA are wearing, which anyone that's been following you for a minute would see that it's a little bit different from your typical style. There's lots of color, and I just thought that was really fun because you reinterpret those looks with your own clothes. So I'd just love to hear, like, how did you come up with that idea? And just tell me, was it so fun to write?
It really was like the most fun thing. And I think sometimes for me, my writing, there are some things that I just know I want to write. And then generally this situation, I'd gone to a coffee shop with my laptop and I got there, my laptop was dead. And I was like, oh man, there's no chargers around. And I always carry a notebook with me. As you know, I love my journals. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to people watch, which is another hobby of mine. And I just started writing what I was seeing, like socks with shoes, canvas totes. It was almost like a shopping list. I just kind of was like documenting what I was seeing. And then I said to my husband, I was like, he was at the coffee shop with me. I was like, I'm Harriet the spy. And then I think that whole thing, I was like, oh, this is so fun because like you said, I think my style is a little bit different generally to where I live. And I don't in any way say that to sound like it's better than. Again, I think this is where style can feel really problematic. But coming from London, I think my style has always felt a bit dressier. But I love taking inspiration from anywhere and everywhere. So I also think I'm currently on another no-buy. I love being able to think, how can I make my existing wardrobe work harder for me? And also, like you said, like intuitive style, in my opinion, is about trying stuff. It's about experimenting. So I love pushing myself out my comfort zone in the safety of my own home and knowing like, okay, here's my barometer to decide what feels comfortable to leave the house in. What bits do I keep? What bits do I maybe go, cool, I tried that, it's not for me. But for me, getting dressed is like playing dress up. It always takes me back to being a kid and just wanting to try things.
How did you know when it feels right and you're ready to
Mm.
leave the house in something versus like, oh, I need to tweak this a little bit more or it doesn't feel right?
That's a really good question. And part of me wants to say there's lots of ways to answer that. But I also think intuition and self-trust is something we build. So for me, it's both a physical feeling in my body. It's kind of like a mental knowing of, I think as well for me, it's like a spectrum of like, am I uncomfortable because it feels new, or is it uncomfortable because I just would feel more conscious wearing this and not wearing it? And I think if it's the former, like, oh, this just feels new, then this is why I like doing like play dates in my own wardrobe at home, because it gives me time to get used to seeing myself in a new way. It gives me space and time to be like, ooh, there's something that keeps making me look in the mirror and go, I'm not mad at it. Like, I don't hate it. And sometimes I think you have to start there before you can get to a place of, oh my God, I love this. And sometimes the, oh my God, I love this does happen very instantaneously. But for me, I think it's almost, it's learning to develop patience with when I'm trying something new. It isn't always going to click straight away. And there will be some things where, try as I might, I'm like, looks great on everyone else, but it's a no for me. Like, I think it's that it's building that self-trust, which I would love to say I could tell you exactly how you do that. But I think to start with, it's maybe wanting to build the self-trust. I think that's a good place to be. Like, I think I've outsourced my tastes when I was younger so much. I looked for someone to tell me, what style is, what would be right. Again, coming of like the noughties and the, 90s teenager, like I grew up with everything should be flattering, everything should be done, avoid horizontal stripes. So I've had to unlearn a lot as well. But I think that started with wanting to unlearn it. Like there came a point where I was like, I would like to make decisions that feel good for me, even if other people don't get it. And I think that's a good place to start, is just wanting to kind of like build that trust.
Can you be my co-host on this podcast? Because amazing.
Anytime.
I mean, everything you said, like there's no bows that we can tie. Like there's a
Yeah.
reason that this is an 18 plus episode and growing podcast, because I don't think that there's a one answer on how to build this self-trust, but it's like you said, it's a choice that we're making
Yeah.
and something that we have to put time and attention into doing. So,
And I think
yeah.
make it fun, whatever fun looks like for you. Like for me, I'm still a big kid at heart. Like I want to put 90s boy band music on while I have a wardrobe play date and, have a sing and a dance in my closet. And I'm always like, how can I make this feel like play versus something I have to get right?
Yeah. I would love to hear, are there any outfits that you tried recently or as a result of that post that was there like anything that stands out that you're like, "Oh, I did this new thing and it felt really good." What was that like?
I think the socks and shoes I see come round again and again. I think it's one of those things that in fashion, it's been used in so many different decades. I see people, like I said, I live on the east side in LA. I see it a lot on the east side. And I always appreciate it on other people. I've just always been like, especially trainers and socks, loafers and socks. And I remember realizing at one point, I don't actually own a pair of white socks. I only own black socks for the winter with my boots. And I remember wearing a pair of black socks over leggings with like a really oversized blazer and then like a white strappy sandal. And I loved the contrast of that. I remember thinking like, oh, this feels like me. Again, that spectrum I talked about, it was a very instantaneous yes. And so because of that, I was like, okay, well, what if it's not a loafer and a sock for me? What if it's just a different shoe and a sock? So again, I kind of like the same Harriet the Spy thing. I'm very investigative. Like, I don't even think that's a word, but like, I'm always trying to be like, what is the bit I do like warmer. And I remember I had this pair of shoes that were actually from the Alison Bornstein Jack Owen collection when she did that launch. And I've got to be honest, I don't always wear them and they're suede and I live in LA, so I have no excuse. But I was just like, I need to wear these more. Again, there's things in my wardrobe where I'm like, I love this item. If I'm not wearing it, is it because I need to find new ways to wear it that excite me? Is it just that I haven't put it enough into heavy rotation? And like I said, I didn't have any white socks, but Dave had some sports socks with like a pink and a brown rim around the top. And I was like, well, if I fold them and scrunch them, I can kind of make it look like a white sock. And it was like a thick sports sock. So I was like, okay, this is really not comfortable. But it's kind of like I have this concept called like the bridge philosophy, where it's like, where can you try something that is like point A of the spectrum of starting stuff and being like, okay, that's my beginning point. And from doing that, although it was like uncomfy because the socks were too thick, I was like, I kind of like this. And again, for me, I have to always add something dressy into the mix. I feel like when there's like a more formal looking bag or something that feels quite, I'm trying to think what the word is. Like for me, I love grandma and granddad. That's always like, I feel like when people say like, what's your style? I'm like, I don't really have words, but I'm like, what a granddad would wear, a grandma would wear, or a librarian, or a geography teacher, like any of those probably would like cross my path some way. Again, yeah. And I just think like trying on those shoes with the socks, I was like, maybe I might get round to buying a pair of white socks. So I think it's whether it's going to be something that becomes fully into part of my everyday dress, who knows? But again, I like that experimenting. I like the play of like, there's something in this that I'm like, that's cute. I like that. Like it brought me joy seeing that outfit come together and being like, I know what it is within the outfit that makes it feel like me.
Yeah, I think one of my questions that I am always like what's the word? Struggling with, and it sounds like you have a pretty good grasp on this, is like um balancing staying open to trying new things and changing your mind while
Mm,
also respecting the preferences that you've observed over time.
mm.
Uh, Can you think of any ways to explain the right balance between those two? Is it just self-trust or is there more to it?
I mean, the thing that's given me the most freedom, I think, not just in my wardrobe, but in life in generally, is I'm allowed to change my mind. And I'm actually writing a piece about this at the minute for Substack because I think so many people can relate to that feeling of once I quote unquote commit to this is my style, this is an objective I'm going to use to describe it, this is, you know, I understand it now. I just think we're always evolving. And I think there's things that ground us. But I think letting go of the fear of like, well, now I've decided I know my personal style, therefore I must stay here. I think there's a fluidity that's needed for it to stay fun and for it to not get into the territory of like good, bad, right, wrong. That's kind of like, for me personally, whenever I'm like, yeah, you're allowed to change your mind, I'm like, oh, that's so freeing. Like there's so much relief in that. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think
Yes.
that's kind of like how I approach that nuance.
I think you answered the question perfectly. It's like our preferences can be valid in a moment in time, and then our preferences can change and also be valid in a different moment in time. And I
Yeah.
think it's just being okay with that.
Well, and I think with this online world we're all in now,
Yeah.
I think it's that fear of things getting used against us. I know as a writer, like, whatever you write, it's in print. Like it's in the world. The internet makes it exist. And people love to go back to something that was said and kind of pull it up. And, I've been within to some extent the content creation world for the past sort of like 12 years. So
Yeah.
of course I see things that I wrote or I've said like from 10 years ago and I'm like, oh, I don't believe that anymore. But I'm like, yeah, because I'm growing. And yes, growing, from an emotional lens, but also literally my experience on this earth is now longer. I've had more points of view to see. And I think sometimes there's this expectation when you let yourself be online of like, I have to have every single nuance covered. I have to have every single point of view. And sometimes I think the asterisks can get a little bit. I think it was, I was chatting about this with a writer friend recently, and I was like, I think the audience just want to feel something. I think they just want to connect. And I'm not for everybody. Like, I think for the most part, day to day, I feel more peace than ever that I'm really not for everyone. But that's how it stays fun for me, rather than trying to be like, and you don't have to dress up and it's okay if you want to dress down. Like sometimes there's that kind of push and pull, but style is personal. Like it can't not be personal if you're approaching it from a lens of experimentation, play. And I think letting go of the idea that we arrive. Do you know what I mean? Like letting go
Yeah.
of this idea of like, and now my style is complete and it's never going to change again.
It's so crazy because there's so many things that I like know in my brain, but
Mm,
then when it's like me, it's not. Like it doesn't feel true. Like I have
mm,
this idea in my head, like I'm in the midst of a style transition right now
mm,
where I'm like, oh, I feel like there will be another side of this. And
mm,
I'm not there yet. And I'm trying to remind myself, like, maybe there isn't another side.
mm.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not like on a bridge crossing a river. Maybe I'm just like on a meandering path.
Yeah, no, I mean, even recently, like again, another post I'm writing about like the joy of patina. Like, I think I've noticed myself I've always loved secondhand. It's kind of what I grew up with, but also now it's kind of coming full circle where I'm like, I've done the babying items I've spent a lot of money on, a lot of which I've sold. And recently I started just wildly pinning Victorian writing desks. It like was one of these things where I was just like, I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with the thought of having a place to do my journals where there's no computer, where there's nothing digital, where I can wear my nightgowns and pretend I'm Emily Bronte. I literally was like, no, it's a whole vibe. But from the place, it's fun. Like I know lace is trending right now, and again, for me, it all comes around full circle all the time. But I found this amazing little table in a thrift store for like, I think it ended up being like $40. And then the next day, found a chair that matches it in like a junkyard for like $20. And I was just like, did I manifest this? Is this part of my style evolving? And I think for me, again, it's letting go of it needing to make sense, because I think that thing of like the consistency that people are craving, and I get it. I get we want to feel like we can wear our clothes, we can use them. We want to avoid feeling discombobulated on like a personal level. But I think there is space for that nuance, and there is space for that. I don't know why I like it, but I do. And okay, I'm not going to dress head to toe like I'm in a Victorian novel every single day. But there are things, it's like that cherry picking. There's things where I'm like, I like that. And it probably doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. And again, it just, whether you want to say it sparks joy, whether you want to say it's, even like when I look at, I mentioned the Victorian table from the lens of I live in LA, everything here is very mid-century modern. The house we live in, there's a lot of things that quote unquote wouldn't suit the house we live in.
Yeah.
But when I saw this Victorian desk, I'm like, I don't care. I just need to own it. Like, I love it. And it's just, I think, leaning into where I'm at in my, whether you'd say style, interior, is like all the things that I use to explore creativity and express myself. I'm coming back to this place of like, oh, I remember my mum having one like that when we were kids. Or there's kind of like that pull to memory. There's a pull to, I've moved away from so many things I grew up with. And now I'm like, oh, I can like really appreciate the beauty from a new lens, and that wanting to be around certain things. Because I think with clothing as well, kind of like to come back to the East Side post you were saying about, I just enjoy seeing people be in clothes. I think there's something so fascinating about the way clothing makes people change how they walk. It changes, the confidence they might have when they enter a room. I think it's so psychological, and I find that part of clothing fascinating. Like deep, like when someone says like, I can't wear this as it's too much, I'm like, tell me more. Like, I'm just like, I want to know all about like, where did that come from? Like, and when someone's like, okay, I've changed now, I feel better. Like, I'm like, cool, I'm so fascinated, like what makes us feel better? Yeah.
You and me both, Harry. That's why I sit here with these headphones on talking to people every week. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you wearing and why? I just want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true. It's like it's just the most beautiful way of communicating and understanding from other people like who you are and why, or
Yeah.
like how do you view yourself? What do you feel about yourself? Not that not that there's like, oh, if you dress like this it means this
Yeah.
thing, but it allows you to have a conversation or, whatever. It's about presentation, like who we are inside on the outside. I mean,
Yeah. And
it's the best.
it's this fun thing you get to play with. Like, again, I always think like we can learn so much from kids when I'm watching like my nieces get dressed with like a Frozen dress mixed with like cowboy boots. And like, my sister was like, no, I literally can't buy clothes for them anymore. And she's 5. My sister's like, no, she has an opinion. And I kind of watch her get dressed and I'm like, she's just having so much fun. Like, to her, there's no right or wrong. And again, going to see her grandma, she's like, oh, I'm going to put my Frozen boots on. She's already figured out like, oh, I'm going somewhere. This is like a place to share what I enjoy wearing with other people. And I just think it blows my mind how it's maybe so much younger than we think that we have this awareness of like how we present ourselves, and that exploring, I guess, creativity, and self-expression through what we wear.
Do you remember what you wore as a little kid?
I do, because I feel like as a kid, I was very, very sporty. So I was obsessed with sport as a kid. I played a lot of tennis. So as a really small girl, my mum, she did do the kind of like matching clothes with me and my sister, which I look back and I'm like, oh, it's kind of cute now. But I remember hating as a kid.
Yeah.
Everything was like color coordinated. It was like if she had Mickey Mouse t-shirt, I had Minnie Mouse, and like her sleeves were like one color, my sleeves were another. And it was like the matching sets, but our own colors. And I remember a lot of that, which makes sense because it's probably just easier for my mum to be like, cool, get 2 of those. Like, again, it's not that deep. Sometimes it is just not. And whenever I was in like skirts or dresses, I was like, oh, I can't do cartwheels or the boys seeing my knickers. Like, I remember in that point, like clothes were like an obstacle.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't wearing things that I felt comfortable in. And then as I became more and more sporty as I got older, I think I spent a lot of time with boys and girls, but with boys as well. And it was like, right, I need leggings. I need trainers so I can run. Like my clothes started to take on this need to keep up. And obviously, like I said, doing sports a lot, I found myself always in like sports clothes, which A was like super comfortable, but it was also practical. Like there was that sense of like, I'm running a lot and playing a lot of sport. And then I think like around age 11, I think it was probably like 11, it was like I went totally the other way. My brain was just like, wait, hang on. This is like the Top Shop was like the coolest place in the world at this point. And I just remember like, again, I was playing a lot of sport and, I don't know if like any other kids can relate to this, but there was a point where my mum was like, do you want to like go to sleepovers? She was a bit like, do you want like, I loved sport. And again, there was no like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Wimbledon. I'm going to go do this. But I think a lot of the people I was with had that mindset. Like their parents were like making the kids like do tennis before school. And like I used to play with the county. So like it was one of those things where I could have started taking it seriously. But I think as is the way with me, I was like, this is just really fun. So I like
Mm.
just doing it from that. And I think my mum realized quite early on, like, every time someone invites you to a sleepover, you have like tennis camp, you have whatever. And you can do that. We support you if you want to do it. But we just want to check, like, do you want to be a kid? Like, do again, I was in like lots of highly competitive scenarios
Yeah.
where, and I'm really grateful my mum did that because I think for one, that's where I realized I love makeup. I remember like the first time I went to a sleepover and we just all opened makeup bags and were like swapping like the free blusher we got with the magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just opened this world that I'm the oldest, so I have a younger sister, and a younger brother, but I'd never been around girls kind of going through puberty. Like, that was my first foray into like, there's this other world and it involves glitter.
Yeah.
So I then went like very hard the other way and was like, okay, yes, I want to go to sleepovers all the time, talk about clothes and play with makeup because this is also really fun.
I mean, this whole line of conversation is perfectly segueing into my next question. Your expertise is super wide ranging, as I said in the intro, but you refuse to be limited by labels. You wrote, I've worked hard to undo the belief that my identity comes from any one thing. I am a writer and I'm a content creator. I'm a writer and I talk about style. I'm a writer and I'm a daughter. I'm a writer and I'm a wife. I'm a writer and I'm a friend. There is not one thing I am or am not. I am so much more than what I do. How does this way of viewing yourself as so many different things all at once, how does that impact the decisions and choices that you make? And how does this compare to earlier versions of yourself?
I mean, I want to be very honest. I think that piece of writing especially reflects where I'm at now and where I've been like the past year. It hasn't always felt that way. I think there's been, as much as I've always been the person that's had lots of interest, I think in the past I have been like, okay, well, I need to be the best at something. I need to be really good at it. I think I've been very hard on myself. Like that has existed. And I think for various reasons, like moving away from that, it has given me the flexibility to be like, you know, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Like, and sort of what is the point, and where has chasing joy been the majority of my decision making? And that might sound like really immature to some people. I think past me would have thought like, oh, that's very like, you know, unrealistic of you to kind of think that way. But because I think I've been in situations that were highly competitive and kind of, the worlds that I've been in within my work, I think coming out of it, it was like taking that step back and just being like, kind of like what we were saying about not, style evolving. I think it's that same thing, like your likes, your dislikes, the seasons you have in your life, kind of really making space for like the one you're in right now. And I think it's that thing where I'm in a place personally where I'm like, there's many days where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And there was a time when that terrified me. And I think, and I won't lie, there are times when it still does, but more times than not, I'm just like, how fascinating that we're here. Because there was a part of me that would never have let myself be in this place before,
Mm.
especially when it comes to slowing down, especially when it comes to doing less, and that making space to be multiple things at once and be in a season where maybe one thing is a priority for a while, maybe a different thing is a priority next month. I just think I'm in a season of permission for myself to be whatever I need to be. And I've needed it so badly. Like, I think that's what I always come back to when my brain's like, you're not doing enough, you need to figure this out right now, I just come back to like, no, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And there's a lot of discomfort in that sometimes because I think we're taught, and it kind of comes back to the style thing. We're taught like you should know it, you should figure it out. There's an end goal, like there's this coming home to where it's like a finish line. And I think the more, I'm 40 next year, like there's more understanding the older I get of like, no, this is just going to keep evolving and there's going to be so many different seasons. And, for me, I think I'm really trying to figure out like how to, what's the word I want to say? Like redefine my relationship with ambition to a place where it's more fun and playful, and to a place where, when I first started writing, it was funny being like, okay, I'm a writer. What's the end goal? And I
Mhm.
think now I'm like, okay, well, I actually don't really have an interest in trying to be a New York Times bestseller. If it happened, cool, that would be great. But like, it's not like there's not like an end goal as much as like I think writing actually makes me very present because it's just like one post at a time, in a way that with Instagram, which I don't really do anymore, it's very like optimization heavy and like get as much done as you can in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, I think writing, the fact I can even spend a week writing the same piece, which again I know sounds very luxurious, but it's I want to. I'm taking that long because A, I can, and B, that I want to. And I think noticing how much I've come back to long form content, like, I still do YouTube, but I've also kind of come back to that. I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm like, there may come a point where I want to go back to doing short form content. But for right now, the season I'm in is about doing less and then not having to be, I'm doing this to become XYZ. I'm doing this because I need to have someone validate that I did good enough. And it's hard to unlearn, I'm gonna be really honest, but, like, I think I keep coming back to, like, I just keep writing Substacks, like, I don't have a content planner, I just keep writing because for now, it gives me a lot. Like, it really does give me a lot, and I love the people I've met through it, like, the fact I got to meet you. There is so many things that come out of just going after something because it feels right. Again, that intuition, I think
Yeah.
that building your trust with yourself, it all comes back to that.
How do you feel after you've decided to hit publish on a post? What does that feel like?
For the most part, really excited. I think that again is what's different. I feel like there's something about putting something out there where I'm like, that's my point of view for today. Like, it could be different in a week's time, but there is something, and I think about, you could definitely say Substack is like a body of work. And
Mhm.
I treat it like work in a way that I'm very committed to it, but I'm still doing it because I'm in this season of trying lots of different things right now to be like, maybe I'm meant to do a bit of this, maybe I'm meant to do a bit of that as well. And I think writing's the thing that I just keep coming back to. For now, it just feels very like I don't know if I'd say security blanket, but it feels fun. And again, I think something I do love, obviously, we're writing kind of on Substack. Like, I think for me, there's been something very empowering after doing a lot of free content for many, many years. And I have done sponsorships. I do have affiliate links, but it was never how I like full time earned my living. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with doing that. I've noticed there's so many incredible content creators who do this full time and I'm in awe of them. But I think it's that thing where I'm also kind of like, I like that as a creative, and I've always identified as a creative in terms of a lot of the jobs I've done have been very creative. They've been freelance, they've been self-employed. I do have this kind of cheerleader in me for the fact that people pay for my work. There's something really refreshing about that. And especially, Instagram, YouTube, the
Mhm.
longer you do this, the more you end up with not nice comments as much as you get some lovely ones. And I often do joke to myself if someone wants to talk shit about me, I'm like, well, you have to pay me first.
Mhm.
And there's something really safe about that, I think. I like the fact that, like, yeah, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. I'd love you to join. But I think prioritizing my sanity, my, capacity as well. I think that's also an issue when you're kind of writing, creating, is your capacity in terms of what's sustainable for you. I think is really, really important. And I've suffered from burnout. So and I see other people either in burnout, going through it, or kind of on the other side of it. And I just think so much of it is we're all trying to do everything and be everything versus, even when I stopped doing Instagram to the level I used to do it, there was almost like, no, I should do it. And
Mhm.
I was like, but just because I should, like, who says? And I think especially from the being a creative, like I said, it feels really empowering when you get to be like, no, I'm just going to spend more time here right now, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it doesn't, if it feels like there's missed opportunities, because that's how my brain wants to see it sometimes, versus like, no, this is just what feels good for right now.
I feel like you're healing me, which is not your responsibility by any means, but, no, I'm kind of speechless. I hope that's okay. That was so beautiful, and there's so much that we're unlearning around what it means to, like, show up as ourselves and what it means to make a living and be a good friend and be a good writer and be a good
Mm.
creative, and I just think that your whole newsletter is just a beautiful love letter to figuring it out. Again, the kind of meandering path rather than like walking over a bridge. It's like just anyone that hasn't read your newsletter, can you just like stop watching this podcast and go look her up and then come back, please? It seems highly unlikely, but just saying.
Oh, thank you, Maureen.
Mm, I did want to talk about some of the things that you're kind of dabbling in or
Mm,
exploring. So, one of the questions I typically ask our guests are how they decide what to buy and where. But
mm.
since you're currently on a no buy, I thought it would be more fun to talk about how you're deciding what to buy for your new bag and accessories resale endeavor. How do
Yeah.
you know when when there's a piece that you want to resell to your subscribers?
This is a really fun question because, and it's very easy to answer. I just feel like it's something I would want. I found myself being like, I'm at a really good point in my wardrobe for now. Like there's not really much room left at the end. Like I feel like we're
Mhm,
definitely
mhm.
getting to the point where I'm like, it started to feel overwhelming again, which I was like, I think I'm ready for another no buy. Like I'm just doing this one for 6 months, but I was like, I think it will be I'm almost more fascinated to see what it feels like doing it the second time after doing it for a year. Um, but yeah, I think it comes down to things that I would want to own that, obviously in all honesty, if they don't sell, I'm like, oh, woe is me. I have to use these lovely handbags. I'm like, okay. Um, but I think when it comes to secondhand, especially, I'm always of the belief that one thing I would love to kind of like destigmatize is like secondhand, like, can we just call it secondhand? Like, I remember saying pre-loved in front of my husband once, and he was like, "What? What did you say?" He was like, "Pre-loved." He was like, "Am I allowed to swear?" I'm like, "Do you want me
Yeah,
to not?"
yeah, 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 yeah.
He was like, "That's the most wanky thing I've ever heard." He's British too, by the way.
Yeah, tell me you're British without telling me
Yes.
you're British.
And I was just like, I guess it is. And obviously, like, I've been a big real shopper. Like, I've brought very low price pieces, I brought very high end pieces secondhand. But it's funny when I think like that term, it's like we had to give it a term in order to be able to spend a certain amount. Or like, I think it's really interesting the fact that, like, and again, I'm trying not to generalize here, but I think I know some people prefer saying, oh, I shop pre loved
Mhm.
versus secondhand, as if secondhand is like a more, I don't know, it's less prestigious almost. And I think for me, this is what I'm excited about with this handbag endeavor because there are pieces in here that are going to be much at like the lower end price point. And there's also pieces that are, in like several hundreds. So there's a real mix. And again, what one person considers a lot and what person doesn't is vice versa to what somebody else doesn't and vice versa. But I think it's to show that like no matter your budget, in my opinion, secondhand still gives you the most bang for buck. It still gives you like the best chance of getting something that's high quality. And again, you have to know what to look for. I think that's the thing. Like I grew up doing this. Like my
Mm.
mum, again, before like thrifting was cool in England, we called them charity shops in England. My mum taught me and my sister like how to find leather. Like, she taught us by the smell of things. She would, talk about the labels, like, what to look for, like which brands. So I grew up very like clued up on that. And I'm really grateful for that. And again, this full circle thing, it's funny because when I first moved to London, And I definitely was a starving artist, like living in like the room I couldn't stand up in and the whole Harry Potter story. I used to buy things and sell them on eBay. So I had a thing where like, I'd go into like a thrift store. I remember seeing like a pair of Chanel shoes for £30. And I was like, okay, well, that's like at least, 200, whatever back then.
Yeah.
And again, I got very good at like knowing how to find things. But I think, yeah, I've fallen back in love so hard with secondhand. And not one price point, not one brand. It's more the idea that like things are lived in and used, which again, a part of me in the past, like I've definitely found in the past there was a period where I was babying things, especially things I brought new that I'd spent a lot of money on. It was like, oh my God, it's got a scratch. Like it would cause
Yeah.
me like I couldn't be present. I found myself
Mhm,
being like
mhm.
at lunch with someone and being like, is my bag okay? Is my bag okay?
Yeah.
And I think that's been it's been funny coming back to that where I'm like, oh, it's actually really nice. Like I still treasure my secondhand pieces and I'm still taking good care of them, but there's not that same uh, anxiety that takes me away from whether it's the person I'm with, the place I'm in. They get to just be this like wonderful thing that adds character to my outfit. And again, yeah, I just think the fact that like irrelevant of what you're spending, you can find something great if you know where to look.
Are you taking requests?
Well, this is the funny thing when the handbag drop launches, it's just going to be like I think it's going to be 10. I think I'm finished. Um,
Ooh.
I'm also going to be offering a secondhand sourcing service. So
Ooh.
I'm actually going to be offering a service where you can request. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Well, I've seen some of your selects,
You've had a sneak peek.
and I was like, "Oh gosh, I don't think I need bags, but do I need bags?"
It's funny because I was doing a piece the other day about how big my wardrobe really is. And bags have always, I think some people are like shoe people where they're like, shoes, oh my God, I can't walk past the shoe shop without looking in them. I'm a bag person. I'm realizing this more and more as I get older. Like, I love shoes. I love every category, but blazers and bags, like, I can literally feel like I'm walking around in like a dustbin bag and feel like if I have a good bag, I'm like, I feel like I'm wearing head to toe Schiaparelli and diamonds.
What is it about? I mean, I have thoughts on bags as well. They're amazing, but what is it about a bag that's just like so like what is it
I
about
know,
them?
I was trying to think this the other day because shoes are actually on your body, whereas a
Yeah.
bag you kind of pick up and put down. And again, the psychology in me is like, I can see a lot of things that have come from, we've all grown up with like it bags and stuff like that. But there's something, I think what it is for a big part for me is that I'm love craftsmanship. So I love leather. Like I love stitching. Like there's something for me, and I think this is because I will. This is so embarrassing. I will like buy a bag and just like put it like somewhere where I can see it and just like stare at it.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be like, you're so pretty.
That's not embarrassing at all. You should yeah, you don't even
And
wanna know.
well, I know people do this with shoes and like several things, but there's sometimes when like ever I've got a new, and even with my old ones, there's ones where I just like put them on the side and be like, oh, she's so pretty.
Yeah.
And there is something in like construction. Again, I've honestly had the conversation of myself. Do I want to learn how to be a cobbler?
Mm.
Like I'm because everything's so like on the table for me. There are days where I'm like, do I want to go to leather school? Do I want to learn how to like actually hand make and manufacture? And I don't have the answers right now, but I think it makes sense why I'm starting with bags as this secondhand drop, just to see like I've picked pieces that some of them are similar to pieces I do own. So I feel very excited to be able to like directly show you can actually now get this. But yeah, the craftsmanship, there's something so tactile about the way, for me as well, like leather is a skin, not to be super gross for anyone who's seen it, but it ages. And I think there's also something for me very metaphorical in that like leather aging, like for example, the Mulberry bag. Like I remember my first ever designer bag was a Mulberry Bayswater. And the reason I wanted it is because of all the images I saw where it was like battered and like the
Mhm.
leather had patinaed. And even with patina, like no bag will patina exactly the same. And I think that's kind of cool. It gives it like its own fingerprint.
Mhm.
And when I think about, like I said, kind of like bags, especially like leather bags aging, I'm like, it kind of reminds me like, yeah, we're meant to. Like it's almost like a metaphor for like, no, we are aging and that's not a bad thing. And look how beautiful these bags get as they have their stories. They kind of like every mark is like a memory of something that happened to you or where you were, from very mundane moments to like really magic moments. So I think it's also the fact that like bags can be really handed down as well.
Yeah.
Like I think there are some items of clothing that, as much as we would love to think they're forever pieces, I don't think my white t-shirts are going to be handed down to my niece. And my bags, however,
Yeah.
like I can imagine like her wearing them. And there's something so cool about that.
You're reminding me I should go raid my mom's purse closet, see what she's got in
It's got to be done.
there. No, that's so beautiful. I love bags. I mean,
Love
and
them.
I think you
Mhm.
kind of touched on this, but like you said, they're very tactile. I mean, you're literally holding them in our hands,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of
There's a
satisfying.
feel.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're like wearing a shirt, we're wearing a jacket, whatever, but like this is weird too, but I've started to like try to eat with my hands a little bit more. I just feel like something about like letting myself, or even like cooking with my hands more rather than
Mm,
like using a tong. Like, there's something about that experience of just, like, letting myself experience what I'm doing with more of my body. It feels
mm,
really good, and
mm.
I wonder if that's at play with the bag thing too, but
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I recently had back surgery, which is healed really well, and it's all been gone very well. But it's funny, obviously, I couldn't wear a bra for like 2 weeks, and similar thing to what you were saying. I think there's this when one sense is like taken away. So for me, it was like, oh, I can't wear what I want. Like there's certain things I just can't wear right now. I found myself, how you were saying, like with like using your hands, and it's like a different exploration of sense. I got really into fragrance. Like I
right?
like
Yeah, yeah,
fragrance.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is now the best part of my day, is choosing a perfume,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty much wearing the same 2 dresses like every single day. There's like my only options, and that's fine. But I found myself becoming genuinely obsessed with fragrance in a way I don't think I could have comprehended. And it
Mhm,
stayed with me. And like I said, I've always worn perfume, but now it's
mhm.
like, oh, I want to layer, I want to menu them. I want to like, it felt
Yeah.
like shopping something else I owned in a really, really fun way, that because I'd taken away one sense, it kind of like really emphasized another one.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, one thing I'm hearing through everything that you're saying and what you write too is like it's you choose to stay open and present and attuned to your situation, and that provides you so much value. So,
Mm,
like, I know that in Western society or culture, you know, when we are in pain, when we are feeling anger, when we're feeling sadness,
mm,
like, there's not a lot of support to pay attention to that feeling, and instead we're supposed to like numb or kind of run away or pretend it's not happening. And
mm.
I think one of the things that you illustrate so well is that maybe that's not the best approach. And when we are, you know, struggling or when we're whatever, being present can actually open us up to opportunities that we didn't even know were available to us.
Mm.
I'm just curious, like, do you feel that that's your experience? Like, and even how did you get to this point of openness?
Again, I don't think there's an easy answer. I
Yeah.
think I've been closed off in certain ways for like many years. In the best way I can describe it is I was operating. There's been a lot of operating. Like I'm a very good doer. This is what I know about myself. Give me a task and I'll do it. Like I'm a very good doer. But I think sometimes the just having the pause to be like, where am I? What am I doing? Is this the direction
Yeah.
I want to go in? Like, and I think breaking it down to see life as seasons has helped me a lot. I think that's helped me rather than making it like this one big thing. So I'm just like, I think sometimes, and you know, I'm quite, not to get like too deep, but I think when I think about life, sometimes I do find it overwhelming. Like as someone I've struggled a lot with depression, like the concept of life and how big it is
Mhm.
really overwhelms me sometimes. And I think I have to like just be like, no, it's just a form of lots and lots of seasons. Like there's all these different seasons that make up life. And again, I'm allowed to change my mind. Life is going to throw different things at me, that many of which I won't be able to predict or, you know, see coming. And I also, without sounding like a Pinterest quote, like I'm so grateful as well. Like I love the life I have. And I think sometimes I feel this innate sense to make the most of it. I think there's that sometimes like it's almost like we use that as a way to propel us forward, but also sometimes I think it puts a lot of pressure on us as human beings to be like, oh my God, am I making the most of every single waking moment?
Mhm.
And I think I learn a lot from other, like, I've become obsessed with Italy. I know everyone's like talking about the European summer. I'm reading the Elena Ferrante books at the minute. And I just think that seeing something different is so good for us to be like, oh, there's all these other ways of living. And no place is perfect. I'm
Yeah.
very clear about that. But when you see people existing differently, like one my uncle, I have an uncle and aunt who live in Bulgaria,
Mm.
and they live off the land. They, live on like a beautiful mountain. It costs like they sold their house in England and brought like 4 houses in Bulgaria that like they like did up and then sold, and like they live in this really cute little tiny house, like mountain cabin, and they're just the happiest people I've ever met. And they love building, they love making things with their hands, and kind of like what you were saying about that tactile need to like experience. I think I'm like a sponge these days. That's the best way
Yeah.
to describe me. Like, I want to
I can tell.
experience as much as I can. And it's a bit like being awake again. I think sometimes, like, my experience with depression feels like you go to sleep for a really long time. Like, you kind of like exist through life. And when I'm in these like periods of like, oh no, I'm awake, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can see the colors, I can smell the perfume. Like it feels very, like I said, overwhelming, and sometimes that's in a good way as well. Sometimes it's like, "Oh my gosh, there's all this magic." Um, but I think I always come back to doing things with my hands. I think that's the born creative in me, and I think we're all born creatives, to be very clear. But, recently I've been making leather journals, like, I started making candles, and the hardest thing to override was like, "And now I should sell these." Like, like that cliche about, like, every millennial just thinks a hobby has to be monetized, and I am that
Mhm.
millennial. But I think, and while there's nothing wrong with that, like, I've still said to myself, "You might wanna do that one day." The just letting myself spend time where I make something, and it doesn't have to be quantified as like, "Oh, this made this much money in this time," or "This did that." And I'm really jealous of anyone who, like, has always been this way. I'm like, "This must be so nice to have a life where, like, you grew up just thinking that way." But I I'm good at, like, relearning lessons over and over again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that need for tactile experiences, I think that need to make something with my hands, that's something I lean into a lot now, where I'm like, "Okay, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. I just need to make something." And sometimes that's a Substack, sometimes it's writing, sometimes it is making a candle, sometimes, I'm going back to see my sister in September, and I'm so excited to craft with my nieces. They're like at an age now where we can like do crafting together, and I'm so excited. I'm
What
like,
kinds of crafts do you think you'll do?
we'll probably do loom band jewelry. That's definitely going to be, that's kind of like their favorite is like loom. Do we call it, is it loom bands in America? I don't know if it has a different name.
Um, I think it's a different word, but it's like a beaded bracelet.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
like
yeah.
the making jewelry, we're going to do some baking.
Mm.
Again, coloring in, like all those things that are just, and I wanted to make them both like a journal, and to kind of, because I always kept diaries as a kid. I've always journaled throughout my whole life. And luckily my mum's kept most of them, and they are hilarious. If ever anybody needs like a good chuckle, go read something you wrote when you're 7 years old. There's nothing
Yeah.
better. Like the highlight is today I ate spaghetti.
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
like it doesn't
mhm.
get much deeper than that. But yeah, I think I always come back to things with my hands.
Your childlike wonder is just so magical.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
it's really what's the word for one something contagious. It's
That's nice.
contagious. I think we should get to our last question, which is what advice would you give to someone who's trying to build a wardrobe that feels intuitive and authentic to them?
People watch,
Mm.
experiment. There's no rush. I think just again, it's that curiosity for me. Like the two words I love most in my wardrobe are curiosity and creativity. And creativity to me doesn't mean I have to try and look like Iris Apfel every day. Like I don't put the pressure on. For me, creativity still exists in like jeans and a t-shirt. Like a lot of people would argue with that. But I think if you've never worn jeans and a t-shirt, you need to give yourself space to try that, to see maybe it's just the jeans you take away. Maybe you don't like either. But I think the key is to experiment. And I really believe in wardrobe play dates, which is exactly what it sounds like. Just there are days, and my no buy helped with this so much. Like there were days where I would just open my wardrobe and just try combinations I'd never thought of. And sometimes it was like, okay, well, I always wear this combination. Let's try this, but swap out one thing for something else. Like I'm always trying to think, how can I make it like a challenge for myself? But again, wardrobe play dates, I still do them now. Like they're my favorite thing to do. And again, it's coming back to that tactileness of like feeling different fabrics on your skin, because there is a practical element of clothing as well. And I do think we have to be honest with like, okay, what does our lifestyle require from us? Like, you know, if it's going to be, you might really want to wear high heels, but if you're living somewhere where that doesn't really work with your lifestyle, okay, maybe, you know, how else can you explore the idea of a heel, whether it's a smaller one? Is it the shape of the shoe that comes with heels? I think it's just trying to kind of pick the bits that speak to you and just play. Like, I wish there was a more succinct answer, but whenever someone asks me this, I'm like, you just have to play.
That's great advice, and definitely advice that I'm trying to take. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where are you most active these days?
Definitely Substack. I would say that's where I am around most of the time. So Harry Styles by Harriet Hatfield. And then I have a YouTube channel as well called Harry Makes It Up, which I post here and there. Again, I'm letting that be kind of like another little creative playground where I sort of like experiment with different things. But yeah, Substack, I would say, come hang out with me there. I love writing on Substack.
And anyone who wants to get in on your bag resale, where can they do that?
So all the details, again, I'm going to be doing it so that my subscribers on Substack get like first dibs. So they will be kind of like the first to know about it. But it will all be, once it is live, it will all be available at harriethatfield.com.
Okay, fabulous.
Yeah.
I will make sure to link to everything in the show notes.
Amazing.
Thank you again for joining me. This is an absolute delight.
Thank you. I've loved it. I could talk with you for hours.
I'll have to have a part 2.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Intuitive Style is produced, edited, and hosted by me, Maureen Walton. Our theme music is by Tim Reed and Jacob Walton. In case you missed it, Intuitive Style, the podcast, is an offshoot of Intuitive Style, the newsletter. Head on over to Substack, search Intuitive Style to read the newsletter, which covers reflections on what's happening in personal style world, guest features, and the encouragement that there is no right way to get dressed. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe as new episodes drop weekly on Fridays. Thanks. See you next week.